Okay, well, I ended up getting 3 grouse for the Fireside Chat. I do my grouse Parmigian. Nothing like fire, eh? It's just, boy oh boy, man's best friend in the bush other than Finn. I know it's been a long time since we had a Fireside Chat. It's due to various reasons. I mean, there was a fire ban all summer, and yes, the fire ban's been off for a while, but I've been busy doing other things like the 3-day survival challenge, and I'm up north hunting now, and I just haven't been able to get the Fireside Chat going in motion again. So, I mean, I can't really do a Fireside Chat during a fire ban. Obviously, I can't have the fire. And to me, a Fireside Chat without a fire is like a marshmallow roast without marshmallows. What we would do is just change this up a little bit. I kind of, instead of just telling a true story, I mean, I will continue telling stories. What I wanted to do was talk about venomous snakes, venomous spiders, and then compare that to toxic plants and mushrooms and show you some similarities. We're just going to talk about the snakes first, and then we'll get to the other stuff. The 3 most venomous snakes all live in Australia. And for those who don't know, the inland taipan is by far the most venomous snake on the planet. And then next to that, also from Australia, is the eastern brown snake. Highly deadly snake as well. And you'll remember when I was in Australia that I had a run-in with that eastern brown snake. And at the time I wasn't really thinking how dangerous of a situation that was for both myself and my son-in-law Marco's brother Gilbert, because the snake had gotten out. And you remember when I lifted the lid up, it was right by my elbow. Then it got out, was underneath the container when we were trying to move it. And the problem would have been, if either one of us would have been bitten by that, the nearest hospital was an hour away. You're going to start to see symptoms from that snake within half an hour to an hour. It's that venomous. You know, if you're in a country like that, boy, you can't mess around with these things. You can buy yourself a little bit of time by having a tincture bandage and wrap it tight above where the bite is. Buys a little time. I did have one of those. If I can get one at a hospital, I'll take a kit for the brown snake, and also what they have on the farm is the red-bellied blacks, and they're highly venomous as well, but not nearly as bad as the eastern brown. The inland taipan is kind of a skittish snake. It tries everything to avoid you, and the reason there just hasn't been fatalities because of it, it lives in an area way out in the middle of the country where there's no people, and thus there's just not any encounters with it. But it is the most venomous snake on the planet. They say that the eastern brown is more aggressive, because I found that that snake, it did everything to try to get away from us. It didn't come after us, and I've seen videos where people defend the snake and say, hey, they're not as bad as you think. They try to avoid you as well. In Australia, that causes the most fatalities is the eastern brown, because it's in populated areas near the cities like Sydney, other villages and towns, ranch land, surrounding ranches. So that's why there's more encounters with that particular snake that causes the most fatalities in Australia. The inland taipan, it has enough venom to be fatal for up to 100 people. 100, not 10, 100. That's how venomous that snake is. You know, you kind of wonder to yourself, well, why would a snake have to be that venomous? I mean, it's just eating rats and mice and smaller reptiles. It's just hard to fathom the amount of venom, or how venomous that snake is. That just seems like overkill. It's just so venomous. But I said the inland taipan is the most venomous on Earth, on the planet. But there is one in the ocean that's even more venomous. That actually, there is a 5th snake that I was going to talk about. Causes the most fatalities on the planet. These snakes, they must be very prevalent, but they live in highly populated areas of India, Africa, and even other countries that are highly densely populated. And the run-in with this snake must be horrendous. And they say that this snake is very aggressive. and it's not even very big, a foot to 2 feet long. A lot of people can be bitten by this and survive it fine, but it does bite several times and will inject more and more venom, so there is a lot of fatalities, more than any other snake, and that's the Sawscale Viper, or carpet viper.
We're supposed to lose between 20 and 50,000 people every year to snake bite, but from the Sawscale Viper exactly we don't know.
Well, I can talk about the spider before I get to wood. The most venomous spider in the world, also from Australia, is the Sydney funnel web spider, and they tend to be aggressive as well. They will come after you and not back down, and larger spider, huge fangs, big fangs, like an inch long. They are the most venomous spider in the world. But there's lots of venomous spiders all over the world, and I mean, I'm sure some of you know of some in your area. Yes, you would have to get treatment. You'd have to go to a hospital if you were bit by one of these spiders. In comparison to, say, like an inland taipan or the brown snake, where you have half an hour to an hour and you've got to get the anti-venom, the spider, even that one, you have several hours. 5, 6 hours. It's not like you just got to rush right off to the hospital. Well, you wouldn't delay. So that's a little comparison between the spider situation and the snakes. Snakes are far more deadly to deal with than any of the spiders. Hopefully, you find these statistics and stuff interesting, and you're going to take the time to look it up, because it is fascinating. Nature's fascinating no matter what. So then we go to, like, say, poisonous plants, toxic plants, and there's a lot of similarities in the way they affect you. Like if you take your water hemlock, UYEW, the shrub, and I'm going to deal with that one in particular. It's got many different poisonous, toxic alkaloids that are fatal. But the main one is Toxin B, which really affects you the most, because what it does is it basically attacks your heart, and eventually your heart just gives out and quits working. But it also interferes in the impulses from your brain to make your heart not operate properly. So fluctuating heartbeats, but then ultimately it's attacking your heart where it just shuts down. Cardiac arrest is the ultimate thing there. The only problem with these toxic plants is if you've ingested a fatal dose, there's nothing they can do. There's nothing they can do for you. It's just too late. But I just recommend staying right away from you. It kills livestock. Children are the most susceptible, because the arrow on the berry is actually tasty. Looks like a huckleberry, but as few as 6 seeds can be fatal to an adult, and 2 seeds for a child. So that tells you how toxic that plant is. So it is important to learn your plants. I mean, obviously, you know, I try to talk about plants as much as I can, and I know a lot of you viewers are very interested in that. I'm not trying to be doom and gloom about the whole thing, but it is kind of important subject. Now, something I don't know, I couldn't find any research that if birds can eat them, because you remember in one of the other videos I was talking about how birds can eat the baneberries and the things that we can't eat. And like I say, I don't know, I can't find any research if the birds can actually eat the berry, the arrow. See, if you can find something out about that, maybe leave me a comment, because, you know, I'm still learning all these things too. You know, you never know everything. You can't. I mean, it's impossible. Like a bear, for instance, well, I mean, it can eat rotten meat that's going to make us sick. One thing that was interesting, though, is it's toxic to dogs, cats, horses, cattle, moose, deer, elk. But one animal that seems immune to it is the badger. I found this very interesting, too, because I thought, well, a badger. The badger can actually eat the leaves and the berries with the seeds, everything. It has an enzyme in its stomach and guts that neutralizes all these poisonous alkaloids from the U. That's interesting. Took me a lot of research to find that. And again, with you, another interesting fact is that some countries and some places have banned you from being sold at nurseries. They have banned people from planting them in their yards. That's how much of a concern that this bush, shrub, and tree has become. You, be aware of you. Subject is the mushrooms that we haven't talked about yet. But you know, the mushroom that causes the most fatalities is the Amanita. And there's hundreds of varieties of Amanita. There's Death Cap, there's Destroying Angel. Actually, just up the road here, I saw some Amanita muscaria today. They're red with white dots, sometimes orangey with red dots, and it causes the most fatalities of any of the mushrooms. The reason is that, you know, people are becoming more interested in foraging wild plants and foraging mushrooms in particular, and so they mistake the Amanita with something else, and thus we have the problem with the poisonings of the mushrooms. And this is why I try to stress, get your plants right, do your own research, don't make mistakes when it comes to wild plants, like whether it's hemlock or camas or Amanita mushroom or whatever. Make sure you're right. Double, triple, quadruple research, and make sure you know the plants and things that you're dealing with. So basically, I think that wraps this fireside chat up as far as the chatting part. I'm gonna get my Gross Parmigiana on the fire. Hopefully you find these things interesting and you're gonna go and do your own research, because I'd really like it if you did. It's a fascinating subject, nature. You know, there's other interesting things, you know, that we can talk about in the future as far as animals and things like that, and the whales and the birds. And so if you're interested, give the fireside chat a thumbs up if you really find it interesting. You know, like for example, a polar bear. You know, they can swim for a week straight. They can swim 200 miles without touching land. Like, things like this are just fascinating. Nature is fascinating. That's it for the chat about mushrooms, spiders, snakes, and poisonous plants. So right on. Thanks for watching the fireside chat. We will have more, and we'll see you on the next one. There's my beautiful plate of grouse meat. Nice and cold. I keep the thighs, I keep everything. Now, I left these in the truck overnight, and it was about 15 below almost, or 10 for sure. But I left the feathers on. I always leave them a day before I clean them. The meat is way more tender. You can't eat them the same day. I think I've mentioned it before. And my hands are cold from just cleaning them, but the meat didn't freeze. So we'll get this dinner going. And like I say, check the other video if you want the full recipe. I'm just going to do it up and get it on the fire. Now, doesn't that look yummy? Man, going to be a good dinner. Gross Parmigiana on the fire. It's the best. Man, oh man. Is that ever good? I'm telling you. But try the recipe with chicken as well. I read some comments when I did it the first time, and people really enjoyed it, the people that tried it. So really try that recipe with chicken or grouse if you have them. It's so good. We'll see you on the next fireside chat.